Let's talk about the V-Taper file. The V-Taper file, as I mentioned before, the shank is very small. You know, a lot of files on the market. For example, ProTaper. Everyone uses ProTaper. I have a bunch of ProTapers. The diameter of the ProTaper is 1.2 millimeters. The diameter of the V-Taper is 0.8 millimeters. This particular file, the 2006, that's this yellow file, the tip size in probably the first 2 millimeters is the same as a ProTaper, the F1. But the difference comes that this is very narrow. And it's a very flexible file. They're heat treated and they're an efficient file. The problem is the flute space, the chip space is kind of small. And so as you use that file, you need to frequently clean it because it'll generate debris and fill up quickly. So it's pretty much the only file I use these days. I'll tell you another decent file, though, that is very similar to this file is the Edge Endo file. And that's a newer file you might have noticed. And they're very inexpensive. You can get a six-pack of Edge files for $20. And they also have a narrower diameter. And if you want to know, this file was originally developed by Chuck Goodis from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he is the person who owns the Edge Endo company. So same individual. But the V-Taper is now manufactured by SS White. Has a parabolic cross section, but just a great little file. Okay, here's a typical case that I treat. You know, I hear a lot from people. They say, "Well, if there's decay on the tooth, you can't be conservative." Well, here's a tooth. There are two teeth in a row actually that have a good amount of decay, and so I remove that decay. I open the chamber. I see some tissue. You can see where that MB2 canal is. I used a endo guide burr, troughed this area out, was able to get a file into that area, and there's the final result. Despite coronal mutilation due to decay, I was able to keep the access very conservative in this region. This is what we call the pericervical region. The pericervical dentin has been preserved. The shapes are conservative. And look at that. Again, you know, people, the gut reaction is to say, you can't do skinny root canals. You know, they equate skinny with sloppy. I don't think, you know, these aren't sloppy, and I don't think anyone watching this is looking at that saying, hey, those are sloppy root canals. You know, I probably spent at least an hour and a half to 2 hours on each of these treatments. These were all done over multiple visits. Almost all my treatments are done on multiple visits with calcium hydroxide interim.